Welcome to Persons of Interest. My name is Derek Dockett. In this episode, my guest definitely does something interesting. Katie Cavender is currently the Assistant Director of Communications for the College Football Playoff. Before that, she spent 11 years at the Mountain West Conference, eventually rising to the position of Assistant Commissioner for Advanced Media and Digital Strategy. Because of our previous roles working at the conference level in college athletics, Katie and I often had similar experiences as we both navigated our way through the digital content space. We even had our worlds collide once a year with the Mountain West Missouri Valley Challenge. But now, Katie is fresh off her first experience with the College Football Playoffs, and I was curious to learn how it went and how her new position differs from her previous one. So if you're interested in a behind-the-scenes look at what it's like to work in communications and in digital for arguably the three most important college football games of the year, well, this episode is for you. Here's Katie Cavender on Persons of Interest.
Hi, bud. Good to talk to you.
How are you been?
Good. You know, it's been fast and furious. As you mentioned, we both are new in new positions, and 2018 and 2019 has been a real busy one thus far. It's only the 16th day of January, but I'm sure we'll talk about that here shortly.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, gosh, and I'm trying to remember, and I do remember when I first reached out, when I was at the Valley, we were getting ready for the Mountain West Missouri Valley Challenge, and I sent an email, and I was like, hey, you don't know me, but I'm the guy that runs the social media for the Valley. Could we do something to, make the challenge a little bit interesting on social? And I don't even know if we did anything that first year. I don't
know if we did either, actually. I remember we did eventually, but I kind of think it took us a little while to finally figure out what we wanted to do.
Yeah. So I was at the Missouri Valley Conference. Katie was working for the Mountain West Conference. And it just so happened that we were both in similar roles handling the social media, the digital media. You guys had the Mountain West Network. We had Valley Live, which you guys were way ahead of us at the time because we were just sort of like floundering. And then we got the help of what was then Webstream Sports, which is now Tupelo Raycom, John Cervisi and his group with video streaming. But eventually we caught up, and then now everyone's doing ESPN3 and all that stuff. But it was just interesting because we were just like the same role. We were managing the Twitter account, the Facebook, and digital content was the thing. And it was like clockwork every late February, March. Yep. So what are you doing? How are you prepping? Any ideas?
It's tournament time. Let's bounce off each other for sure.
I didn't have to worry about football like you did. So you had the churn in the fall. But it was fun because we always had the ideas going back and forth. But now you've progressed on to the college football playoffs. You got even more eyeballs on your stuff. So I guess I just want to catch up because I want to know how that was. You just finished up, obviously, the college football playoff and the national championship a couple weeks ago. What was your first foray into the CFP like for 2018-19 there?
Yeah, so I started with the CFP. My first day was the 6th of August. So I went straight from Mountain West Football Media Day in Las Vegas, flew back to Colorado Springs, packed some boxes, picked up my mom from the airport, had a farewell party, and drove to Texas.
Wow.
And moved myself to Dallas and started work about the next week after that. And it's been drinking out of the fire hose ever since, but it's been awesome. It's crazy that the day before this year's national championship game was my 5-month anniversary on CFP, and just how far we've come in the past 5 months. But it's been really super awesome. I'm our assistant director of communications, so that is part of our media operations, media relations team, but then also work with our intern. We're kind of a two-man digital and social media team, which is really awesome. And you said it best, like to take the Mountain West was super great training for me as it related to balancing workload and having 18 sports to make sure we were servicing and 13 different universities that all needed proper attention. But to take that and to focus on one sport and really the Super Bowl of college sports, I mean, quite literally as the championship of the college football space.
Yeah.
And to narrow the focus, but to exponentially grown the scale and the scope of what that looks like and all the minute details that are involved, and then the audiences that are so passionate about it, has been a really terrific learning experience for me to figure out how to navigate all of that stuff. I was fortunate to be able to, take multiple site visits with our team to the Bay Area to help prepare for this year's national championship, which was great. I got some really great FaceTime. This rankings exercise with the new members of the selection committee, so I got to learn all about that stuff. It feels like the rankings process throughout the fall was forever ago, and the last one was December 2nd, and it's only January 16. But had some really great experiences there. I was fortunate I got to be at the Orange Bowl this year with Alabama and Oklahoma, and they're great people in Miami as they hosted one of the semifinals this year, and then, of course, was in California for 12, 13 days in executing the national championship. So it's been a whirlwind. It's been a lot of fun, but now it's fun to regroup and debrief, and we're kind of setting the reset button and focusing already on 2020. We've got a trip to New Orleans set here in a couple of weeks to start and hit the ground running again. Wow. It's pretty crazy.
That's funny. So that leads me. I've got so many questions about how this works, because when people from the outside think about college sports, from the conference standpoint, they always say, oh, you've got, this, and the other. And I always tell people, well, don't forget, we got cross country, we've got volleyball, we've got softball, we got swimming, we got this, that. It's not just basketball or football or, base, whatever it is. Here you are now working for the College Football Playoff, and it is a focus. It is a narrow focus, but there are several different parts of it, because you guys have the weekly rankings that came out during the fall. And that was part of the social content that was always there. You guys were doing live content on each one when their rankings did come out. I know there was the partnership with ESPN and how that worked out. So I'm curious what the process is of preparing. So college football season starts in August, and you guys aren't releasing rankings yet. You guys weren't releasing rankings until a couple weeks into the season. So obviously there's probably already, the committees thinking about what they're doing and what their focus is. But from your standpoint, what's the prep leading up into the fall and how you're doing the rankings, the content? Sure.
So it was a lot. This past year was a lot of baptism by fire. It was a lot of, okay, what's the next hurdle we have to cross? So when I first started, it was making sure that our historical media guide was all updated and ready to go. So like our year in review stuff that we do, and making sure that was ready to go on our website, getting that all refreshed before the season kicked off. And then the next step was focusing on, we do a bunch of mock rankings exercises. So we bring in administrators from all over the country, talent from ESPN. We have about a 2-week period of mock rankings exercises. Even some student journalists from universities across the country come, and they get to sit in the actual seats.
Okay. So similar to how the NCAA does the basketball mock selection. Okay.
Yeah, so we do that. It's set up exactly like the selection committee does when they start meeting in mid to late October-ish. So it's focusing on that. And then once those mocks are done, okay, now it's time for the real deal, Holyfield part of this rankings process, and making sure that we've got that whole content strategy all lined up. And then simultaneously starting to think about, okay, now we're getting closer to these bigger semifinal and national championship game events. What items do we need to consider for those? How do we put plans in place? One area that we lean on heavily, and I am so grateful for them, is we've got a tremendous relationship with the great folks at Twitter and at Facebook and Instagram. I think I'm really fortunate in that I was able to create and establish some good relationships with David Herman and Will Exline and Nick Marquez, Will Yoder, those guys that I'm sure that folks who are listening follow on social media, who kind of handle the college sports partnership space for Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. But to be able to rely on that baseline relationship and take it to another level with them. We had calls with them every other week to plan, things that we needed to do on our channels, things that they were going to do on theirs to help amplify the story of the teams that made it to the semifinals in the national championship game. So that took a lot of planning and preparation, but something that I think has really benefited us, especially because we're such a small staff. So I mentioned before, like our external relations staff is a staff of 3, and there's myself, there's Gina Leahy, who's the head of our department, and then we've got an intern every year. And our full staff in general is about 20 to 25. So for the scale and the scope of which the college football playoff is, we really need to rely on a lot of planning partners to get the job done, and a lot of volunteers and the folks at ESPN and then at Twitter and Facebook and Instagram all have been folks that I've leaned on really heavily in this first year. And I think some of the successes we had this past year are evidence of the great work that they did on our behalf.
That's awesome. So you guys do all the pre-planning work, and then it's time to release rankings.
Yeah.
Are you responsible for designing rankings graphics? You pull stuff directly from TV to your student, your helper? What's that process like, digging in when it's actually time on a weekly basis to release those rankings there?
Yeah. So it's a pretty tight process. The folks who are we've got a staff of, let me count here, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's about 6, I want to say, folks on our staff who are privy to being on site at the meeting space with the selection committee each week when they go through their processes. And I think of those, maybe 5 are actually in the room when the final determinations are made. So Gina, my boss, she compiles all of that information and she puts it down into a release format for us and proofs it several times and makes sure that everything's kosher and matches up with what was determined by the committee on a weekly basis. And then there's a specific time that once she's comfortable and once we can get it going, she gets that to ESPN and to us, and we turn and burn really quickly to get things prepped for the website and email distribution and then social graphics as well. That all happens pretty in sync with when ESPN gets that to build their graphics for their show, and it's almost immediately leading into when those shows go on air, and we're kept to making sure that we're posted. It's a fine balance. So we want to make sure that we're releasing on our channels and owning the story as much as we can in sync with those selection shows. But ESPN, just with their rights deal, they get the first right to make sure that they're getting those announcements first. So just making sure that we're super prepared, that we understand the run of show that ESPN has. So if they're going to announce, number 4 and then number 1, 2, and 3, or what it looks like for their rundown in their show, that we're prepared socially on our end to distribute that information in a really timely fashion. So we're really super fortunate there. My intern Megan and I would seclude ourselves. We've got 2 conference rooms at the office. One of them is called the Bowl Room. It's got the logos of all the New Year's Six bowls in it, so that's why we call it the Bowl Room. And it's got some privacy shades in there. So usually when we get the go ahead and the green light, she and I will go in there and lock ourselves in, and all of her fellow interns would take boomerangs and things as the shades would come down, that we were kind of secluded and working on things for our own. So it's super, it's a crazy, awesome privilege to be privy to that and to be part of that process. But with that privilege comes a heck of a lot of responsibility, and to make sure that things are tight and right, and that things aren't getting leaked and we're not having issues that some of our counterparts at other places across the country. I think it was a couple years ago, there was a big mishap with NCAA bracket reveals, things like that. Yeah. We want to make sure that doesn't happen for CFP. And so far, at least in my first year here, and as I understand it, in the first 5 years of the CFP in general, we haven't had that problem. So
good to be in lockstep.
We intend to keep that the same moving forward.
Well, it all looked great. And of course, as a graphic designer, I love the consistency of how everything looked throughout, all the way through the championship game, of course. So you do the rankings, and then you guys release the top 4. So we've got our playoffs set up. Of course, that's a big day. So I'm sure even more tighter knit and even more lockstep there when you actually releasing the top 4 teams. Besides the responsibility of doing digital and social during the season when it's rankings and on a weekly basis, what are your other responsibilities during the season prior to the playoff actually starting? Like, are you traveling to games? Are you just like tweeting about other college football games that are going on? Like, what are you doing in particular during the season? So
a lot of my role during the season is really communications and media operations heavy. So again, maintaining website, if there's any press releases that need to go out, things of that nature, and then preparing for those media events that we have throughout the year. We've got a big news conference in November where we announce the talent lineup for AT&T Playoff Playlist Live. We have this 3-day music festival leading up to the national championship, and so that's usually a big to-do for us to announce who those talent are, and then making sure that all of that announcements and the graphics and things of that nature are all put into lockstep there. And then a lot of it is just a lot of national championship prep. We are really fortunate that we've got a whole army of media operations volunteers, and we've got a whole team that is social media focused that come, and we basically kind of tongue-in-cheek but affectionately term them as we're kind of a traveling circus. And so we have folks come with us from place to place to place that really help us with stuff like that. So this year, Megan Bordeo, she's our intern, and she is a graduate of Oklahoma State, and she is extremely focused in digital and social. And I'll have to give her some big props. She this year took the bull by the horns and really identified a team of social media, I would say young influencer type stars from across the country that are either getting close to graduating from college or have been out of school for just a couple of years, that are video producers and graphic designers and people that were specific for just writing captions. And so she did a whole recruitment of a team of about 13 to 14 people that came with us. So then it's preparing, manuals and style guides and here's how things want to go, and all of this big lead up until we get to game week. Which is kind of a lot different from the conference space, as I'm sure you can appreciate, just having games all the time and always having something to execute. It's like you execute something and then you're on to the next game and you just keep going and going and going. There's a lot more buildup here, but the payoff is, I think, even that much greater. I think the satisfaction that we left the Bay Area with this year is something that I really still cherish now, a couple of weeks later. And I think that's what is a great appeal of working on this project in general. So like I say, it's a lot of prep work, but it's also, communicating with those great partners that we have. And then once we get to identifying the 4 semifinal teams, we did a bunch of communication and integration with those digital and social teams and those communication staffs on their campuses too, to make sure that they're, hitting the thresholds that they need to in the CFP handbook, or we're answering questions that they may have about how they can get access to content or how we can cross promote and amplify each other. So it's growing and changing and evolving, and it sounds like we've made some great strides in the 5th year here, and I think it's going to be really nice heading into year 6 that some of this stuff will not feel as much like the wheel feels invented now, so to speak. So like it'll be nice to get into year 6 and to have some precedent on my mindset of like, okay, here's how things go from month to month, at least during the football season.
I can only imagine, because I'm thinking back to way back in 2010, 11, when I first started, and I'm like, okay, I've been to Arch Madness. I know what the tournament's like as a fan, but here I am now. I'm supposed to be doing this. What am I supposed to do? And then you go through the first year, and I'm like, okay, that was okay, but man, I missed the boat. I could have done this. I could have done that. And I learned on the fly, and I just started doing things, differently year after year that I'm like, okay, this worked out well. Let's continue doing that part.
Yeah.
And not so much.
Absolutely. So, I had the frame of reference similarly, like coming into my job here at the CFP, I could rely on the Mountain West Football Championship, the Mountain West Basketball Tournament, things like that. But the last time I had been to a national championship in the college football space was when I was an intern for the Pac-10 at the time in 2006.
You said the Pac-10.
The Pac-10, yeah, not even 12. Back in the day, I am that old, ladies and gentlemen. And the Pac-10 at the time ran all of the media relations efforts for the Rose Bowl game, and that year was the national championship with Vince Young and Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, and we all know how all that ended. But it was crazy. Apparently, it had happened 13 years ago to the day, on one of the days that we were in the Bay Area, and I saw a bunch of social media traffic about that, and it was crazy to reflect on. Gosh, to finally be at my second national championship game 13 years later to the day, and just to see how the industry's changed, how the roles and responsibilities for those of us who work in this space in college sports have changed. It's pretty remarkable, but it's also pretty cool too to have had that full circle moment.
Yeah, and technology obviously is a big part of that. Because obviously, we all know what's happening with Twitter and how social and digital keeps changing on a monthly, if not weekly basis or whatever it is. So okay, all that happens, and now it's time for the semifinals. You've done all your build-up. You've got prep. Are you at both games? You go to one game? Are you assigned to one? You're following? What's your process during the national semifinals?
Yeah, so we split up our staff. Both semifinals are on the same day. So I was on site. I was in Miami for the Orange Bowl, and Gina, my boss,
like a jet back across.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Gosh, that would be really cool. If we could
I honestly thought that might have happened. I really did.
We'll have to get on that ESPN, that College Game Day Wheels Up train or something. I don't know. Anyway, maybe not a train. Probably would have to be an airplane or a helicopter. Anyway, so Gina stayed here in Dallas for the Cotton Bowl this year, and then I went to the Orange Bowl and was there for all of their festivities. And really, we are there to lend support to the host media relations staffs if they need anything, and then we've got folks from our team operations, and then our C-suite executive staff are there as well. So we kind of divide and conquer that way. So lend helping hands. We kind of are there to also observe and make sure that there's a little bit of policy that the New Year's Six Bowls need to follow the years that they are deemed the playoff semifinal games. So making sure that we're there to offer support if those thresholds aren't being met, or identifying what those needs are, and then the other big component of it, which is similar to NCAA basketball, is being there for once each game is over, hosting the transition meetings afterwards, so helping the winning teams get prepared because the turnaround's so quick. This year the semifinals were on the 28th, so it was a Saturday, and the national championship was a week from Monday afterwards. So it was about a week turnaround time for the teams that advanced. So making sure that they knew like where to ship all their stuff and when they were arriving and how they were going to go through their processes for their, travel party tickets and hotels and all of that minutia that the average sports fan has no idea is vital to making an event be successful. So that was really exciting for me. I had prior to that, spent about 24 hours in the state of Florida just at a meeting preparing for this trip. And so I got some really great time with the great folks at the Orange Bowl and getting to know the folks at Alabama and Oklahoma. And it was a great experience. And I think something that'll be really valuable and was valuable for me too, going into the national championship, having had that game under my belt, but then also transitioning myself from my semifinal to a national championship experience.
So when you make it through the semifinal, you're getting ready for the national championship. How nervous are you Like, okay, here's the biggest college football game of the year, and everything needs to go right that I'm working on, and everybody's going to be watching this one game tonight because, even pro sports take a back seat when it's a national championship for college football or college basketball.
So what's weird is that I caught myself all fall, like just being in grind mode and just like knocking stuff out and doing what I had to do to get the job done, and because that fire hose was turned on so high. But then, like, if I was in a restaurant or in an airport, and if I would somehow see something on ESPN in the corner of my eye with the logo that was like on the backpack that was on my back or something, it would be like, whoa, this is bigger than I've ever worked on before, and that stuff is actually super, super awesome. Yeah. I think what really struck me in the Bay Area, and it took some time to finally get there, but there was a moment in pregame in the press box where Bill Plaschke of the Los Angeles Times, and he's also on Around the Horn, he's been a columnist for the LA Times forever, and I've admired his work forever since I was a high school student, came up to me and thanked me for all that our staff was doing to make this a great experience for the media, including himself. And
that's cool.
And for someone who I had admired at that echelon of sports media and who I had admired for years and years and years and years to seek me out and to thank me for that, like, that kind of blew my socks off. That was pretty insane. But again, super, super privileged and super blessed to be able to get my hands on something that people are so tuned into. But the funny part is, too, I think you'll appreciate this. I caught myself at sometimes during the game, you're busy and things are going on. I caught myself a little bit having some FOMO because I had spent the previous 4 years in the CFP at home in front of my computer watching the game and then having my second screen experience with all my friends like you on Twitter, like analyzing what the social looked like or what the commercial was, or, oh my gosh, did you see that play in the game? That it was kind of weird to be on the other side of that. I'm not going to lie to you. So I've been poking around asking some of our mutual friends, like, hey, how did it go? Like, what was going on? What did I miss? What was going on during the game? Which is, it's kind of a surreal experience to feel that a little bit.
Yeah, I felt the same way last year. I went to Arch Madness as a fan. I got to sit in the suite, and I actually didn't check out Twitter a whole lot, if you can believe that. But after like so many years of making sure I got that dunk or I got that alley-oop, and I'm making that GIF or GIF or however you want to say it. And I'm snappy TVing away. And here I am, just like, I'm just watching it. And it's just sort of weird. Like,
it is weird.
It's weird. Like, I don't know what to do. It's just sort of, you throw your hands up. So I was wondering if, like, you find yourself like just watching the game, like, oh, I'm so busy. I know I got to capture this. I got to do that. Like, I noticed that I went to my younger brothers played football at Boise State, and they still live in Boise. And I went to Boise for Thanksgiving. So there was a Mountain West football game there that I was able to attend. So I got credentialed and, went to the press box and on the sideline or whatever. But I didn't really have any game day responsibilities. Right. And so I didn't have my computer on my person. Probably
I didn't
weird.
have to in-game tweet any of it. And I kept, I didn't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah.
Or to just take in the moments is super awesome, and it just makes you reflect, like, this is why we really love to do what we do. I think that's one thing that this position has kind of reinvigorated in me is not, and this is not to say that I didn't adore my time at the Mountain West, because those people have become family to me and will be that way forever with the schools and the conference staff and all of that. But to be able to have a little bit of that reflection time and to take a step upward and to be able to see and appreciate the impact of what you're doing with folks so excited about it, I think that's super cool and something I'm super grateful for.
It's all about perspective, right? I mean,
yeah,
you know what you're doing. Like I'm getting the same thing now. Like I'm not as heavily in sports. Like we have high school sports, of course, is like the main thing that I'm using as a marketing tool. But the perspective is it's like, man, I'm doing this for the kids. I'm doing this for our students in our school district. Yeah. And when you hear them come up and says, "Oh, this is so awesome," or thanks for taking these pictures, or just that kind of thing, the perspective just changes. So like the outlook and the reasoning and that kind of thing. So
the fact that we do what we do. And even you now in your current role, like we get to, hang out with kids and talk about sports stuff. It's really awesome to get to spend, your career doing that. There's not a lot of people in this world that can say they get to do that kind of stuff, and just feel super blessed to be able to be on the wagon as long as I have been.
So you guys obviously probably have some recap, and you probably ever started that process, but you've been through the ringer, so to speak, of going through the process of the selections and the rankings each week and the actual semifinals and national championship game. When you take that into consideration and look back, I mean, you were at the Mountain West for like how long? 11 years?
Almost 12 years, like 11 plus. Yeah.
So you had a longer run there than I even had at the Valley. So because I was only there for 7 years.
Yeah.
So when you take all that into perspective, and those are, when you think about it, I mean, they're different. I mean, the other thing, and I'd love to get your feedback on this. We see a lot on social media, and you interact with people that are working in college athletics. Mm-hmm. The majority of them work at a school. They work in a department at a university or college. There's not many of us that work at the conference level, and it's just a little different. We're not on campus. We were responsible for the championship events and here and there, so it's a little bit different to, I want to say, get attention, but to realize what we're doing is just different, but we're doing it a different way with a different twist. And we're responsible for the 10, the 12, the 14 schools in our conference, making sure that they get an equal share of the coverage too. So
no doubt.
I always try to let people know, man, when I was at the Valley, it's great to tweet about Wichita State or Loyola, whoever's doing great.
Right. Sister Jean. Right.
But don't forget, you're tweeting for the conference, not for that school. So every sport matters. You got to find those spots where those other schools are doing great. You got to tell those other stories, regardless if they're sport related, academic related, whatever it is, finding the balance. Yeah. So now you go back, look at the Mountain West, and everything I just ratted off, you're all familiar with.
Sure.
But the focus is so different and narrow at the College Football Playoff. Is that just relieving? Is it an adjustment? How do you look at that and compare it?
It's different. So we have made it a practice in the past to make sure that we're not doing any specific promotion of specific football programs during the football season. Our focus during the fall in our content strategy is really on the rankings, the rankings process, and more of an education piece than a promotion piece. That has taken some getting used to, and keeping the hands away from posting score updates or highlights or any of that stuff. And the other part I will say is that I've really been fortunate, and particularly with Megan, our intern, on reinvigorating a bunch of creativity and not relying on what's easy, what I felt was easy at the time with Snappy TV. So, in my previous life, we were really fortunate, and we could use Snappy TV to highlight the heck out of stuff on all of our channels, and we did, and it paid off for us. We don't have that luxury now, just with the way that our rights contract is tied up with ESPN, and that's absolutely fine. It's like I say, it's instilled a new sense of creativity, I think, in us to be able to look at things in a different way and to tell the stories at angles that maybe are not just the standard, here's your highlight reel type of a situation, which it felt like a challenge when I first started, like, gosh, how am I going to get this done? But the team that Megan put together did a tremendous job without us relying on that tool at all. So it can be done, folks out there who are listening. Like, it can be done, and it's kind of nice to push yourself beyond the limits and to look at things in different ways, because at the end of the day, that's also what's going to cut through the noise. Like, you can find those real-time highlights pretty much anywhere. And Joe Blogger is going to probably do that from his apartment or his house anyway. So how can you still identify and resonate with your audience? Thinking about things in a different way has been a cool opportunity for me too, that I didn't really anticipate coming in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, we always talk about find some way to cut through the noise and do something different that makes people want to follow you, and makes people want to like your page and do all that stuff. So actually saying that is one thing, actually doing it and doing it well is another thing. So
no doubt.
Using what you have to your advantage is always the thing. And I always try to tell people, like, hey, I've got this credential that most fans can't get to. There are simple things that I always wanted to share that I thought this might be cool, and things work, but also just wanted to make it easy. You don't have to get too complicated to do things that people will want to like you on Twitter and do all these things. It's not hard. A buddy of mine, we go back and forth. Twitter isn't brain surgery, and creating content isn't brain surgery. Yeah. It's just what you're doing with your time and how efficient you are. Yep. Some people are creative by nature, but it's not like you have to really dig deep and go into 6 meetings to figure out, what are we going to do?
It's like, I'm a big fan of the show Top Chef, and I find that they say on that show all the time, like, if you're gonna make soup or a salad or something simple, like, make it the best darn soup or salad or sandwich or whatever it is. That's a good analogy. Make it the best you can. And so, to me, this feels nothing different. Like, if you do things simply and cleanly, sometimes those speak the loudest to people.
Yeah. So I gotta ask, what's one thing is there any one thing, and you can answer this how you want, that you miss from the Mountain West? Because I know, for me, I definitely, I went to school at Missouri State, and I've been to Arch Madness every year since 2008, and I hope to continue that streak. So of course, man, I got to make sure I get to Arch Madness at least one game every year. But I definitely miss interacting with student athletes. That was the one thing that I was kind of like, wow, this is actually cool. I interviewed Lily Johnson. She was the first 2 episodes of this podcast, and just catching up with her was bringing back memories. Number one, because she's got a crazy memory of all these things that happened while she was in school. But I actually get a little bit now interacting with students in my school district. So I'm curious, different role, but you're still in sports, but you'd only have football now. Missing anything from any other sports or interacting and going to campus?
This next couple of months is going to be really interesting. So I think you're fortunate in that you're still in St. Louis, and so you've got the luxury for Arch Madness to be down the road. Yeah. I moved to Texas, and so Mountain West basketball tournaments is in Las Vegas. It's not right in my backyard. So watching from afar, and it actually was even a little hard. The first couple of weekends of the football season was even hard, not being the past couple of seasons I had spent in the command center at the Mountain West headquarters with our sport administrators and our officials coordinator and our lead comms guy the last couple of years doing that. So getting used to that whole regimen and not being there with them. Basketball tournament, like I say, is going to be kind of an interesting thing to be a fan. But it's also been kind of cool too. It gives me a deeper appreciation for that. And I would say the biggest thing that I miss the most out of anything far and away is just the people. Like I said before, the people at the conference office and at the Mountain West schools had really and truly become like family to me. And we are so fortunate that it's 2019. I'm glad I didn't say 2018. It's 2019.
Good job.
That we've got technology like you and I Skyping now. I've got, FaceTime on my phone, text messages, all of that kind of stuff that I've had the luxury, especially this past week at the national championship, I was able to see 4 or 5 different people from my time at the Mountain West there. So that part is nice. But having the day-to-day with those people who I was working in the trenches with there, I mean, that's the part that I miss the most right now, for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that too, because obviously a lot of the administrators and, other coaches that you see on a regular basis or semi-regular basis, going to coaches meetings and administrator meetings, conference championship events, and, when the school's hosting something, you go there. Yeah, definitely those things that you sort of like, wow, that's weird. Like for me, you're still working deeper in sports than I am, but I'm like, I don't travel anymore. Like my traveling is between my school district and it's from one school to the other. I'm in St. Louis, so it's sort of like, and I've gotten like I said, I went to Missouri State, so I'm down there a little bit more with some alumni related stuff. So I get to see those folks. But it's just different. It's just different. Yeah. So I was curious to get your take on that.
Yeah.
So the only other thing that I'm sort of curious about now that you may not even know this, playoffs over. It's the calendar's flipped and everyone's in basketball mode now. Mm-hmm. What does the college football playoff do from now through August? Like, are you guys just debriefing, gearing up? Like, is there some people? I'm guessing there are some people that think they don't do anything except sit there. Like, I know there's probably some planning. You
wouldn't believe the number of people who ask that.
Yeah, I know there's got to be some marketing. Like, I'm thinking of what I did at the Valley just for Arch Madness. Like, when I tell people, we literally would start gearing up for Arch Madness in August. Like, I started designing media guides and program covers and ticket brochures in August, and they're like, really? The tournament's not until March. That's how early it starts. We got to get the TV commercial done, the radio commercial done. So I'm wondering, now that the focus is a little bit narrow with this college football, what are you guys working on up until football season comes back around?
Right. So we do a bunch of debriefing. We're doing that now, a bunch of reconciliation and compilation of notes on takeaways that all of our vendors, all of our media, all of our volunteers, all the feedback that they're giving us, and then that we have internally as a staff, and we kind of just have, I think we've got 3 or 4 pretty rather large meetings where we'll go through line by line and debrief on all of that stuff to make sure that all of those areas are addressed. It seems to be an ongoing process, as I've understood it, as it relates to future hosts. So last year, I believe there were 2 trips made by CFP staff to the 2020 host, which is New Orleans. Next, I think the 12th through the 14th or something, we've got our first site visit of 2019 to New Orleans, and we'll do that on a monthly basis here starting next month. So that's to get a lay of the land and make sure that we're scoping out the venues and getting all of our architectural drawings set up so we know where things will be laid out, and working out all of those details for Media Day and Playoff Fan Central and just all of those fan events that we have in addition to the game. And then it even goes as far out as 2 years out. So we've got a couple of meetings we'll have this year with Minneapolis hosts. I believe it's Minneapolis. No, it's not Minneapolis. It's Miami. I've lost my mind. It is Miami.
It's going to be cold.
Yeah. Well, the future site hosts that have been selected. So 2020 is New Orleans. Then it goes Miami, Indianapolis.
Okay.
I was having a Charles Barkley moment there, I think, maybe. Indianapolis, Los Angeles, and then Houston. And I think that's as far out as we are currently. So there will be ongoing dialogue with all of those future hosts. And then the other part of it, too, is now finally having the time in the spring and the summer to do the things that I had compact from August to January this year. There will be a little more time to stretch that out and do some preparatory work in advance rather than just doing it on the fly, that I'm super excited about, because there's some things I think that we could definitely clean up, at least from my vantage point in the tasks that I have, that a little more time will help, and just having a year under our belt will help us too. But yeah, it's a revolving door. We're always on to the next. It feels like we're turning and burning, and it'll be it'll be football season again. I think before we know it, signing days in a couple months. And then today we announced the incoming class for the selection committee. The selection committee they serve 3-year terms, and so we have outgoing members that whose terms end of January, 1st of February, and 3 new members coming in 1st of February. So there's always something going on. Yeah, we've got spring meetings going on around Football Bowl Association and all of that stuff. So there's always it's football season all year long. I'm learning, but it's super fun. I wouldn't have it any other way.
So you pretty much for folks that do work in college athletics, we always talk about it's a summer project. That's always the term, a summer project. When in reality, especially if you've got a baseball team that goes deep, or a kid in NCAA outdoor track and field, and they're playing into the first week in June, and you're still working and doing stuff for that particular team, and then by the way, kids are going to come back in late July. If you've got football, at the Valley we didn't have football to worry about, but when they got football come back, they're coming back earlier, and you're starting to do headshots and all that other stuff. So, and then guess what? The season starts August 14th for soccer and then volleyball. And all that stuff. So the summer relatively is really compacted, but at least for you guys, I guess you just have an extended summer, I guess. A little bit.
Yeah. Summer projects are now like February, March projects.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. Well,
absolutely.
I hope it's something that you really can flourish in and you really enjoy the position. And like I said, I told you, I thought it was a good fit for you and a great opportunity to do something special. And you've got even more eyeballs, even more of an opportunity to do something special that, quite frankly, a lot of people I'm sure would love to have the same opportunity to do. So.
Yeah, I feel super fortunate. That is for sure. Don't know how I got so lucky.
All right. Well, I always like to end the podcast with 5 questions. And are you ready?
Yeah, hit me.
All right, here we go.
No time like the present, my friend.
In your opinion, from your standpoint, one of the biggest myths about working in sports?
So it kind of fascinates me that there are still people out there who I'm going to really dumb it down, and it probably shouldn't be as dumbed down as I'm going to make it. But there are people out there who still think that working in sports means that you sit in a skybox at a game and you've got a beverage and some popcorn and you watch the game. You show up, half an hour before the game starts, and you get to leave as soon as the buzzer horns, and that's what working in sports is. When it's not that whatsoever. I think people underestimate the attention to detail and the time commitments that working in sports have. And they also have a hard time. I've still got, friends from college and extended family members, things of the like that can't wrap their head around the fact that sports happen when the normal folk are off. So, nights, weekends, and holidays, that's when sporting events usually occur, so people, can enjoy their favorite pastimes, and those events have staffs that work them. So it kind of blows my mind, just the more that I'm in this industry, that's still a misconception that's out there.
Yeah, I got nothing for you on the nights, weekends, holidays, after working in a conference where the volleyball tournament happened on Thanksgiving night.
Yeah.
But I'm always taken back by how many people don't know how much time goes into it. Like, it's not just like it's 7:00 on Wednesday night, there are basketball games going on, I've got to work it. No, there are people that will be there at 2:00, especially if they're working for TV, and their job is to do all that stuff, and then that game ends, and then guess what? There's work that happens after that game.
Right.
So, and then when it's the bigger the event, the more work that happens ahead and behind it. So yeah,
absolutely.
All right, a little bit more fun here. What's one thing that Katie cannot live without?
Ooh. It's going to be a toss-up, and I'm probably going to say it's split between iMessage and Twitter.
I wouldn't have expected that, actually.
Between the two, because the easy answer would have been my phone, but I use iMessage and Twitter a lot on my laptop as well.
Yeah, I do too.
it's kind of a mainstay in my life and a godsend. So yeah, I need my iMessage and I need my Twitter.
All right. No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. What'd you think I was going to say?
I actually thought it would have been non-Twitter or digital related, because I feel like, to me, I wouldn't think of it because, well, if I were still working in sports, because I don't have to tweet as much now.
Oh, right.
But I would have been like, man, I can throw that aside. Now, Twitter's just strictly entertainment for me.
Yeah.
And I just like sharing what's fun information. Like, I don't have to sit there and grind through a basketball game and tweet about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you would have the same thought about it.
Currently, that's what it is. Maybe in a couple months' time, we'll see if that's the same. But currently, that's what it is.
We'll see. See what happens once your extended summer happens here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All those bonbons I'll be popping on the beach somewhere.
All right, here's a good one. Now that you're through the playoff, when you're not working, you really enjoy.
Ooh, when I'm not working, I really enjoy sleep. I really enjoy sleeping.
Sleep's good.
I really enjoy going to concerts, and I really enjoy spending time with my family because I live in Texas, and it's the furthest east and south that I've ever lived. My closest family members, I've got some in Colorado, and then some in Nevada and Idaho and California. So any chance I can get to get home and spend some good quality time with my family is definitely appreciated.
Diverting from my questions a little bit, are you enjoying being in Dallas and in Texas? Getting used to it?
Yeah, there's so much to do down here. It'll be nice as part of this extended summer to kind of get a lay of the land and figure it out. I've been really fortunate I found an apartment a mile from CFP headquarters, so I've kind of just made the loop from my apartment to the office to the grocery store to Target to the dry cleaners and back. That's kind of all I have needed, at least this fall. But to be able to get out, I went to the Red River Rivalry this year during the Cotton Bowl and or at the Cotton Bowl, but during the Texas State Fair, and just getting to meet people and see things. There's a lot to do down here, and everyone has been super, super, super friendly, even just passersby randomly. So it'll be fun to get out and explore and see this new big massive city that I'm living in.
Yeah. My wife and I we went there, and it was years. I mean, this is probably 2009 or 2010. We went to Dallas for a vacation, actually in March. So I know it was before I worked at the Valley. That tells you they we went to Dallas in March.
Awesome.
And we saw the touristy stuff. We did the JFK Museum and Botanical Gardens, their zoo, their aquarium, and loved it. Yeah. And I bring that up because you obviously gave us great suggestions when we went to Colorado Springs, which still to this day is like our favorite vacation that we went on. Like last year, we loved it. We went to Fort Lauderdale and stayed at a resort, which is awesome. Like an all-inclusive type place where it's like we didn't leave the place. Like we stayed at the hotel, sat at the pool, went back to the room, back at the pool, ate dinner out. It's just like a great place. But going to Colorado Springs and like we were outside like every day and Pikes Peak and everything. Great trip, and that's probably a place we will take a return trip to. We won't drive it; we will fly it. Yes, because driving from St. Louis to Colorado Springs means you have to drive through Kansas. That part was rough.
That's a haul,
but we love that trip. We love Colorado Springs. So
good, it's beautiful there for sure.
Glad to hear you're fitting in, and you'll find your way around Dallas.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, back to my questions. Speaking of, as I just talked about vacations. Your favorite vacation spot is?
Okay, so I haven't been to Hawaii in quite a while, but Hawaii's up there for me.
But you've been. I've never been there.
Oh, yeah, see, it's nice. I've only been for football games, but it's not not a terrible place to go for a football game. I would say, so it's kind of a toss-up again. I'm a little indecisive. I like lots of things. So my answer before was spending time with my family. So we grew up in the summers before we got super active in high school sports, water skiing in Idaho. And so McCall, Idaho, and Payette Lake is a place that we still really love to go as a family and get a house and water ski and dink around up there. We really love to do that. That's one spot for me. And then the other spot is in Colorado, in the great state of Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains, and a town right outside of Vail called Beaver Creek. Creek. My very best friend and his family have a home that's a ski in, ski out home in Beaver Creek that I've been really fortunate to go with them and spend 4th of July's there the last several years. And there's nothing like the mountains in the summertime. I really, really enjoy that. So if there's mountains and if we have the luxury to have some water too, and the weather's warm, I'm usually a pretty happy girl.
And finally, and I think I might know the answer to this, but you might throw me, so we'll see.
Okay.
The achievement you're most proud of.
Oof. Okay, well, you're probably thinking, so I am fortunate enough, it's even weird to say this out loud because I'm not one to talk about these kind of things, but I have my name on 3 Heartland Emmy Awards.
She's got 3 Emmys.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. I'm fortunate for my time at the Mountain West and the Mountain West Network. We earned them for technical achievement, which I find is even more cool that it was about the overall accomplishment of what the Mountain West Network was as a digital enterprise. And I always, when I talk about it, it's always so funny because when I was an undergrad, I went to the University of Nevada, and in the journalism program there, you could take a print track, a broadcast track, a public relations track, or an advertising track, or you could be non-sequential, and you could kind of make hodgepodge of those 4 your class base. And for some not smart reason, I took classes in 3 of the 4 tracks, none of which included broadcasting.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But still, somehow, I've managed to be so lucky in my time at the Mountain West and the Mountain West Network to have 3 Emmys and just to be able to work on that project was super fun. But the other thing I will say, too, is just another accolade that we received there, which folks probably wouldn't expect. I would encourage folks, if you're looking for a way to spend a good 10 minutes on YouTube or on Facebook, to look up Fresno State, New Mexico baseball rain delay shenanigans.
I remember that.
So we at the Mountain West earned a Synopsis Social Media Sports Leaderboard Award for this video we compiled. So at the Mountain West baseball tournament one year in Reno, there was a torrential downpour, and if anybody knows baseball, especially college baseball, when there are rain delays, shenanigans ensue. And so my best friend, who's also the lead videographer for the Mountain West, put on his rain gear, went out and basically captured, really a couple hours worth of footage that we got nailed down to about a 10-minute video, which at the time was absolutely breaking every single social media video rule. Like, how dare you doing anything longer than 6 seconds? Vine is king, all of that stuff. But we had it's about 10 minutes, but just capturing the back and forth and the fun that Fresno State and New Mexico had then was super fun for us. And then to be recognized for something that wasn't even an X's and O's thing, but more of a game behind the game sort of deal was a super cool thing to be a part of, and super proud of that. And like I say, if anybody wants to spend 10 minutes, that's a shout out to the Mountain West Network on YouTube or the Mountain West Facebook page. It's there, and you will thoroughly enjoy it. It was pretty cool to see friends of mine from high school who have no interest in sports whatsoever had somehow, like, the way the algorithm had worked, finally the video that I had worked on was ending up on their pages.
Feed,
it was super bizarre to be a part of, and it got millions of views and what have you. So yeah, definitely encourage folks to check that out.
Nice. I think I only had that happen once, where at Arch Madness, I think it was either 15, I can't remember if it was 2015 or 16, but it was Evansville and UNI in our championship game.
Yeah.
At Arch Madness, and the game, like the championship, like the automatic bid came down to a last second shot at the buzzer where the ball bounced. And like, I didn't at that time too. I wasn't using Snappy TV, so I had this other app where I could clip live video. And thankfully, our championship game was on CBS. So I was able to get the clip, and I just said, I don't know if I can do this, but I got to post it. This is like the greatest moment in like one of the Arch Madness memories, and like, I had begged people, follow the account. And on Facebook, it was ending up in people's feeds because like local news was sharing it, ESPN was sharing it, like Sports Illustrated was sharing it. They're like, hey, this is your tournament, isn't it? I'm like, yeah. I've only been working here since 2010. Thanks for paying attention. So yeah, that was great when like the people that like use Facebook or Twitter, and it's actually ending up in their feed indirectly. So
it's really cool. Really cool.
I really appreciate your time. It's good to catch up, young lady.
You too. Thank you for having me part of your podcast.
Now that we have our schedules aren't as crazy as those that do work in athletics on a regular basis with all those other events that aren't football.
Right. Maybe we'll have to talk basketball here in a couple of weeks. We'll get our field in together.
You're just going to rub Nevada in my face, or Nevada, depending on how people like to say it, because I know that's one of your fun parts too, is correct people on how they say
Nevada, like
Nevada,
Dallas.
Nevada.
That's what I tell people here in Texas. It's all good.
Yeah, they're having a good year, so we'll see. Hopefully the Ramblers get things going on track here. They can meet up again.
We'll see.
Thanks to Katie for taking time to join me on the podcast. You can follow her on Twitter at Katie Cavender. That's KATIECAVENDER. Hope you enjoyed listening and would certainly welcome any feedback, questions, or comments. Feel free to shoot me a tweet at DDocket, that's DDOCKET, and you're welcome to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and iTunes. And now, if you listen through the Anchor app, you can also leave a voicemail message there as well. So just search Persons of Interest if you're listening there, bookmark it, of course, but there's an option to leave a voicemail message, and I'll receive those. Thank you for listening to Persons of Interest.